Uh, hi all. Thank you for being here. Actually, I'll be sitting because I have a lot of live demo stuff. So, yeah, and yeah. So this is me. I've been a professional developer for more than 15 years now, but that's not important. Yeah, and I will talk about headless components with stimulus. Yeah, I will explain a little bit what I mean by that. Yeah, I don't have slides, so I'll use slightly different approach for presentation. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter or X, but actually it's better to look on the new Twitter called Blue Sky. Yeah, so a little bit about me. I'm part of Ruby Rift, which is like a boutique Ruby development agency, and my co-founder Christo here is also part of this journey. Yeah. Also, by the way, this is the site of Ruby Binds and Meetup. So if you liked it today, we organize events on a monthly basis most of the time here in the same room. So feel free to join. Also, this really nice website is built by Ruby Rift. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Uh, yeah. So I'll talk about stimulus, which is a tool from Rails about building some JavaScript interactive apps. Let's say it's quite basic tool, but it does the job. Obviously, it's not comparable with tools like React and other front-end frameworks, but you have to use the right tool for the right job. And by headless components, I mean something imagine like that. Maybe you've heard about it. This is like headless UI from the guys who built Tailwind. So basically, it's like a components where they give you some functionality, but they're style agnostic, which means that you can actually get those components, use it in your projects, and style them exactly pixel perfect with your design system or whatever the designer came up with. And yeah, just as said, I'm not having slides, so most of the things that we look at is either in the browser or in the code. And recently I've heard that the only way to show some diff and code is to use lazy git and neo vim. So that's what we are going to use this. So it's DHH approved. Yeah, and yeah, so here is actually our live demo that we will be looking at. Imagine that we are going to build together this app and some small story behind it. So we are like a single developer or whatever, and we came up with some brilliant idea, solid tasks, and basically just an app with to-do tasks where you can actually you cannot even complete them, but that's a different story. The important thing here is that you can assign some people to those tasks. And what we're going to do here is that we'll imagine that our stakeholders are very happy with the success of this product, and they want to get the next investment round. But in order for that to happen, they want to polish a little bit the UX of this app. And more specifically, they want to actually target this select element, which actually works fine, but they're using other websites, maybe like Linear, maybe you've heard it. It's recently quite popular because it's so fast and it has some nice UX, and they're seeing, oh, here I can assign the tasks with some nice fancy component where you can just type the name, use the keyboard, things like that. Or maybe they were just using websites as GitHub, where you can also use a little bit more advanced way to choose user, where you can actually see some avatars of the users and more information, whatever you need, right? And so you look at your code and you're thinking, okay, so how to handle actually this task? Maybe we should just create a new project with Rails API only and use React to build this component. But you sleep on it, you realize that you're the only developer working on this, and that's probably not the best idea. So we'll just use Stimulus in our case to build this. And so here we will describe a couple of things. So we want to replace this select and just some guidance about actually how to do like headless components. So, and because we want to make this headless, because eventually we'll be using this component for some other things we'll see in a bit. And headless components basically in general, stimulus components, we should try to make them small, generic logic. They should be reusable. They should be composable. Sometimes we want actually to combine multiple stimulus controllers in order to achieve a single functionality. In order to be headless, they shouldn't really define any styles in the stimulus itself. We should try to expose some state of those components to data attributes. That's what stimulus is using anyway. We should try to make them configurable as possible, and we would also dispatch some custom events in order for people using those components to be able to actually handle some custom and specific logic. And here we have also some small specifications for the component that we want to do. Basically, it's going to be something like a combo box, but we want to keep assigning just a single user per task, because that's the current functionality. We want to keep having those group options that we saw in the native select, but we want to be able to filter the users by name, because maybe we have lots of users. We want to display user avatar, or maybe user handles, just more rich information there in the select. Also, we want to explain why some options are disabled, and we want to have like a good keyboard support, basically. But for the disabled, as you can see here, one of the options is actually disabled, but that's not the best UX, because we have no idea why this option is disabled. So maybe actually having some way to give some information for the user is gonna help the product make even more money. And just some disclaimer here, what we're gonna see here in those components that we're gonna build, they're not gonna handle accessibility, but this is just because of the purpose of the talk. I want to reduce the code that we're gonna look at, but if you're building such components, accessibility is very important. You should check definitely the area attributes. Also, I recommend this website. It's very good to actually, it's having some different patterns, let's say, the combo box models, tabs, and more. And if you click on something, you'll see a lot of different options, like how it should behave, what keyboard we should support, what area attributes we should be using on the different elements. So yeah, please do, but for the sake of this talk, I'm just gonna ignore that in order to not waste more time. Yeah. All right. So we're developers, and we'll start with something simple. So this is just a currently basic app that it's working. Pretty much the only thing that actually is doing, you can update some tasks, so you can assign someone else, and as you can see, the assignee of the task is changed. Assign is also optional, so you can also have no assignee on a task. So okay, now we'll switch to, so we'll be switching between the code and the the browser. The way that we'll do is I have prepared some commits that we are going to look at. They're quite short, hopefully. We'll explain what they're doing, and then we'll immediately check the current state in the browser just to get a feeling of what UX we have at the given time. So we will try to build this incrementally instead of just looking at the full-blown solution at the end. So here we already have some. So this, by the way, is Lazy Git that DHH is promoting. It's just a great tool to in your terminal to actually work with Git. If you like something more like a GUI experience with Git. Actually, I'm not a big expert on this one, so bear with me if things are going a little bit slow. Okay, so the first thing that actually we're gonna do here is that we're gonna we're gonna create some something that me just like a static. So I'm gonna show how exactly we created that, but here we're gonna start and just do some markup with how we actually want this to look, but it's not functional at all. This is just some HTML, but we imagine something similar to happen, right? And I keep on purpose both the native select and this one just to get a feeling how they compare. So I want something like that, but this already looks nice. If I was a designer, I think I would be done by that time and be drinking cocktails maybe on the beach. But unfortunately, we're developers, so we cannot just draw something nice and complete it. So the diff for this is actually, as you can see, in one of our. I hope the code is actually readable. I'm not sure if maybe it's not the best, but this is just like a markup. It's not important. It's just div buttons. There is nothing interesting actually here. So we want now to, we have this that looks like a select, but we want to actually add something, the part that's actually the list of the users, and we're going to start again with something very dummy. So we're just going to add one more static markup, and currently it looks like that. I mean, it's getting there, still not functional at all, but slowly. Yeah, so just so this is actually the next step. Is the first time that we're going to introduce some components, and maybe I should tell you in advance that actually when I started working on this, I decided, okay, let's break this into multiple components. One way maybe is to do just some combo box stimulus controller that handles lots of logic, but we're gonna separate at least in two components the logic here. One we call popover. We'll see actually what it does. Let me just switch to it. So here we have actually let me show the code first. So we're creating a stimulus controller which we call popover, and this controller basically needs two things. It needs, so we're using targets. That if you use stimulus controllers, this is definitely something that you're going to use a lot. Targets, some way to target some elements, node elements on the DOM. We need a trigger. In our case, trigger is going to be the button that is going to trigger the popover to show, and we have some content which is going to be actually the content that we're gonna show whatever we want to show in the popover. We also have some value, so this is gonna be some imagine like a React state kind of. So it's like a state which is gonna show us whether the popover is open or not, and by default it's not open. Here, another interesting technique is that here we add some events, DOM events, like in this case click on our trigger target, and we remove it. This is just a cleanup on the disconnect. So we use this approach because usually you could do this in the data attributes itself. Stimulus has things like data action, but in our case we want to make generic components, so we're thinking how the people who are going to use those components have to write as less as possible code. So we're going to automatically attach some events for the people who use those components, so they have less boilerplate to write. In this case, we're also using this callbacks trigger target connected because maybe actually our trigger is something dynamic. It may appear or disappear from the page, and this is actually handling that. Maybe you're using morphing, Rails morphing, and from some Ajax request the trigger appears on the DOM. Basically Stimulus using observer, and it's going to detect that, and it's going to attach our events. And here we do nothing interesting. We just do we call toggle. The toggle, as we can see, just changing our value to be the opposite. If it was open, it's going to be not open, and so on. And then the interesting thing here is that here we have this like a callback, which actually will react when this open value changed. And basically, if the current value now is true, we are gonna open the content. If it's not, we're gonna close it. And this is just by using here the CSS where we do display none or remove the display none. We're on purpose using this inline style because again we don't know what people are using for styling. We don't want to work with some CSS classes because maybe they're using a different CSS framework or whatever. In our case, we're going to work with Tailwind, but there's nothing Tailwind specific in the components that we're going to see. And this is the stimulus controller, and this is just the change in the markup. So as you can see in our existing markup, we're just attaching somewhere the controller. It's important that the only thing that actually is important that this controller should be in a place that it's in the DOM, that it's like where it's wrapping the button, which is the trigger for opening the popover, and it's also wrapping the div that's actually the content of the popover. And with this small change, what we had before is already kind of working, right? Like we have something. So this is our trigger. This the whole thing that looks like a select is just a button, and this is our content target. So all right. So far so good. Unfortunately, as you can see, this is not really like a popover because if you notice, it's actually pushing down the button, so it's actually still part of the of the page. Usually popover is something that's above the content, not shouldn't really push the content on the page. So that's easy to fix, and I think that's the next thing that we will do. So here, with a small change, we're using the new CSS anchor positioning in this particular case just because it's less code, but if you want to have like a wider support of browsers, you should actually do some computations based on the viewport, based on the size of the content, where you want to display it, etc. But that's not really the purpose of this talk, so that's why we're using this new shiny anchoring. And for this thing to work, actually, we just do a couple of things. We just add one more value to the controller, anchor name. That's important because the specifications of the anchor requires a name, and if we have multiple instances of this controller on the page, we want the user to be able to specify a different name for each instance. That's already the responsibility of the user. We don't know actually what's going to be the name here. And here we just apply some styles on the trigger, and we apply some styles on the content. Here we're just positioning. You'll see actually how it's going to position. And here we're actually providing this value from the markup, and we are saying the name of the anchor here is going to be assign me. So if I want to use this component to another place, I can give it another name. And with this small change, actually I'm not sure if I change to this one, our popover is actually already acting as a popover. The difference is that it's not pushing anymore the content of the page with this small change. Another thing, by the way, that I forgot to mention, maybe it's going to be better to show it, is that actually those values in stimulus controllers, they're sorry, I cannot, why? Oh, okay. So they're just, so you see, focus on this, oh, yes, Opa, not, yeah, let me just, all right, hopefully that's better. So here, those values, they're reactive, so when we're opening, you can see how actually this value, open value, is changing to true and false. So this way you can expect the current state, let's say, on the stimulus controllers. Another thing is that actually you can go and change it by yourself, and it's two-way basically binding, or maybe with some JavaScript you can actually get the element and do open this one. Right, I think this one should do the trick. You can change it also from JavaScript, right? So this way you have a way to control. This is just something interesting if you need it sometimes. So maybe you have some other JavaScript that actually you can interact with those components. I'm not sure this is the best idea, but it's possible. And your stimulus controller don't really care who is changing this value, so it's up to you. Yeah. All right. So, okay, another thing you want to do now, because this is already working nice, but the only way to be able to actually to be able to close this is the moment if I click on the same trigger, because the trigger is toggling the open state. And that's not really a state to select, because now here I can use escape, for example. And let's do the same thing here. So here, in order to support that, we just do actually okay, this is the only div that we need to in order to do that. So what we do here is when we open the popover, at this time we attach a key down event on the document, and basically when we close it, we remove this event listener, and the only thing that actually this handle is doing is that it's listening if the key that we hit is escape, and if it's escape, it's just changing the open value to false. And we're gonna react on this value change, and we're gonna do the close. And now, if I refresh, if I run here, and if I press escape, it's closing. Alright, it's getting better, hopefully. So the other thing that we want to do is to be able to close it with clicking somewhere outside of this element, somewhere else on the page. And we do something very similar here. Again, on the open and close, we attach a new event handler. I'm not saying this is the best way, so don't judge the implementation too much. It's more about giving you some ideas how you can do some things. And here we just listen for a click. And what we do here in our handler is basically we check if the click happened inside the pop-up content somewhere, or if it was part of the, or if we click the trigger itself. If one of those two things happen, then we just don't do anything and do early return. If you click anywhere else on the page, again we will close the component. So here now, if I click here, you see I'm selecting, nothing happens. If I click somewhere else on the page, yeah, it's closing. So it's starting to getting a little bit closer to the native select. The reason that we are ignoring the trigger itself is because we already have a handler attached on the trigger to toggle. So if we don't ignore the trigger as well, you have 2 times toggle, so it's gonna close it and open it again. So that's why we have to ignore this. But this again, you can use lots of techniques. On some places, actually, you can have like invisible overlay on the whole page, where you actually disable the user to even to scroll the page, and you may just attach a click on the overlay itself. This is already up to you what kind of UX you want to do. There is no standard for these things. Every website does it differently, so it's really up to you. Right. So our pop-up is kind of working. So the other nice thing about the current version of the pop-up is that it's quite generic. I can use this exactly same stimulus controller for something else, maybe for tooltips, right? Because I just want to appear some information, and that's one of the nice things about having generic components. Okay, the next thing, I think this is not really important, but let me see. Yeah, so what we do in this commit is, if I just switch to the previous one, here we just have some static markup which just says user list. In this one we just replace this static markup with how we want this to look. It's again entirely static, but we imagine that we want this to look actually something like this. Here we have input where we can hopefully someday type something and filter to be easier to select the options that we want, and to have some options that hopefully once we click them we'll be able to select them. But at the moment it's entirely static. Let me see if actually there's something interesting here. Not really. So we're just adding markup, and one thing that we're also doing is we're kind of extracting some partials for those. So here how the user is displayed with the avatar and the name, we extract it as a partial because we want actually to use it here in this place as well, because we're displaying in exactly the same way those options here. Okay, and this is how it's looking much better, by the way. So this is the native select. By the way, I'm not suggesting you to build such components just to replace native select. Native selects are great, but yeah. But you can see here, for example, styling those components is still difficult even these days. Here we have some arrow. It's quite on the right. It's difficult to style it. It's difficult to move it or to change the color of this arrow. There are some techniques to make it invisible, to add custom icons, things like that. And our component already looks slightly better, right? And at least visually you have kind of the same things. So we have some groups here, suggestions, everyone else. We have disabled items, at least visually disabled for the moment. Yeah, so we kind of already have what this is having. But the next thing that we're actually gonna do is we're gonna already start adding some improvements. Here we're actually explaining why this option is disabled. Because it's already a rich content, we're just adding some explanation. So the user now needs to have some premium account to select Radu, because Radu is premium. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And Radu is really premium. I can show this in the console. If we do user row, we're gonna see some users that we have. So this is, by the way, the data. We have name, avatars, and we have some premium flag. And as you can see, Radu is premium. So yeah, you need to pay to assign Radu. Okay. What we did here? Let me just check the div. Again, this is just a markup. Nothing else here. We just add some description here. Nothing interesting here. So if our user is premium, we just pass some description to the partial. Absolutely nothing interesting for our purpose. So I think our select is already good. I don't need any more this reference because for me at that time is so here we just have a commit that it's removing the native select, so we have more space on the page. And let's actually introduce another component now, because as we said, our popover is already doing what it's supposed to do. It's showing some content somewhere. In our case, is anchored to this trigger element. But the popover doesn't care actually what we display here. And that's where we actually want to start working now. And this is by introducing another component, which we're going to call command. I'm not sure if this is the best name, but basically the idea is that this is similar to, I don't know, maybe you just open like raycast, and this is like a command, right? You just do some searching and you type a command. And our combo box is kind of this. And I will explain also why I'm calling this command in a bit. And we're going to start with something very basic here. Maybe we should just commit. So we introduce a new controller. It's called command. It's interested into input. So this is the input that we're going to type the command. It's going to have some groups and items. So items are just the commands that we can execute, and groups are just the visual representation of these items if you want to group them in some way. And the only thing that we're doing here the moment is, again, we're adding some event listener, in this case on the items, and basically we're listening for mouse enter. And to mouse enter, what we're doing here is that we get the we loop over all the items, and we change this data attribute called focused. And this is like some kind of state, not exactly a state, but yeah, we'll treat it as a state. So basically the idea is that we want to hover a single element and we want to mark it as focused. Actually, let me show it, it's easier. So basically this is what we are achieving here. I'll get back to the code in a minute. But basically we want to have this effect, right? To know where we are. And our stimulus controller is setting this focused, data focused attribute on the particular item. It's removing the focus from the other items, because we don't want to be able to focus more than one item at a time. The interesting part here maybe is that here we don't have, as you notice, our stimulus controller doesn't have any styles. So where does this background comes from? It comes from the, let me see if I have it in the div. Just a second. Okay, so here we're just adding some, so this is the target for every item. We're attaching the command controller on the same level as the pop over. We're specifying which is the input, and we are specifying which items are the groups, because we're going to do something with those things. But the way that actually it works, maybe I have to open the assignee option, maybe it was. Yes. So the thing is that here we have some tailwind CSS. It's not that important to understand it, but basically you have a CSS which, based on some data attributes, is applying some styles. And in our case, if our item is having data focused, we're going to apply those two tailwind CSS classes. That's why our component is setting only the state, but the user of the component actually defines what to happen on this state. In this case, we are changing visually something on the page based on those data attributes. So basically, our command component doesn't know that it's applying a gray background on the focused items. Okay. So now I want actually to be able to start to select the items, and for this it's actually quite a small change as well. We just add one more event listener to the items. This time is click. And on the click, we're gonna execute this handle item click. We're gonna execute the select item, and basically we're just gonna, the current item that we clicked, we're gonna get some value from it. So the value basically is something that we are just adding. It's just a data attribute to those items, and the value is basically the ID of the user. This is similar to what the native select has, right? You have some labels which is just a representational thingy, and you have a value that you actually want to send to the server as part of the form submission or something else. And here we're just adding those values to this. So now if I click on the item, I get this alert, because that's how I'm handling for the moment this. But you can see that yeah, different IDs for those users are being. Also, I cannot click on the disabled items. This is actually achieved quite simple with just some CSS where we disable the pointer events in this case. But we can have extra logic for that if necessary in the stimulus controller to be able to select only non-disabled items. Okay, so this is already kind of working. We are having some selection, we're having some values. Let me see, maybe I should actually go faster. So the next change that we want to do actually is to change this value of the focused item. So let me just actually what we're doing here. So yeah, so here we're just extracting the focused item. We want to keep this as some kind of state, and we want to react somehow on this. Let me just see here what we do. We're also extracting some helpers, like selectable items. Basically, in this case, we're ignoring the items that are disabled, so we cannot select them. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, maybe I should. So here the thing that we also doing, because this is already extracted as a value, we can provide this initial value. So if we get back to the initial to the previous version, if I open the dropdown, nothing is selected initially, which is kind of not the native select experience. And what we're doing here is that we're now providing a way to, with this data attribute, to say this should be the initially selected focused item, because that's what we have from this. And yeah, we just provide it here as a value. All right. Okay, so this is the first time that I think we're gonna start dispatching some events, and that's how is the recommended way of those two different components, the command and the popover communicating. And now what happens is that what we achieved, I'm going to show the code in a bit, is that now the input is focused when I open the popover. So I'm immediately in a state where I can start typing something, right? This is basically the experience that we want to have. We open it and we're immediately in this input, which is still not working. And to achieve that, we use this technique of dispatching events. And the code's not a lot. Let me just see which is the more important. So here we have the diff is from the open and close functions from the popover command, and we just call this dispatch open and dispatch close in case anybody else in the system wants to do something on those events. And in our case, yeah, we're also making sure to return the focus on close because that's just a good experience. So basically, when we close that, we're returning the focus to the trigger. That's just how it's recommended. And here is actually where this is already custom, right? We have the tools, but the components, they don't know what those events. And in our case, we're deciding to attach a event handler. So basically, we're saying on the open event from the popover component, I want to execute the focus input function on the command controller. So basically, this is the focus input, which is just focusing the input target. So basically, they still don't know about how those things are connected. We just have the tools and we leave the user to do something on those events. Okay, let's see. Okay, so let's start actually making the items filter go. So here on the next commit, we are going to actually do some filtering. As you can see, we are also hiding the groups as well. So for example, if I do those groups, they disappear, not only the items, by the way. So that's why we also have some groups. And the logic here is not very interesting. Basically, just we're at another event listener, this time on the input change. And basically, when the input changes, I'm not going to go through all this code, but we get the value from the input, and we loop over all the items, and basically on each item we fire a new data label attribute. In our case, we're using we're going to see below the name of the user, but there we can add even more things. Maybe we can add the name of the user in Cyrillic, or maybe we can add the handle of the user. This way, even if it's not visible in the UI, you'll be able to filter by more things. And this is quite basic. So we're just comparing whether what we've typed is actually being contained in some of the names that we have in the users. And we have here some logic where for each group, we're just checking, okay, after we filter the items, do we have any visible items in the group? If not, we just hide the entire group as well. Again, this is not probably the best code, but it's just I wanted to do something very fast, so I didn't have time to do more polished thing. Yeah, and another thing we do is that we actually focus the first item while we do the filtering, because so here if I start typing, basically I want the first item that's matching to be selected, so I can easily hit enter eventually and select it. Right? Yeah, and another thing that we're changing is that selectable items, now we're extending the logic that we should be able to select only items that are not disabled and that they are not hidden, because we are currently hiding those that are not matching the query that we are typing. Yeah, I think that's the most interesting thing here. Okay, so now I want to be able to start selecting with keyboards. So which means that now I can. Did I switch to this? Yeah. So now I can use the arrows to actually go up and down As you can see, we are skipping the disabled items, nothing interesting here. As well, if we start typing, we again ignore the ones that are not visible, so it's kind of working as expected. And for this, again, nothing interesting. On the input target, we start listening to the keyboard events, and here we are listening for three things: arrow down, arrow up, and enter. Oh yeah, enter as well. So basically here now I can already select something, press enter, and basically I can already use entirely on the keyboard to select some items, because until now we had to use click on the items. Here the logic is not that interesting. We're just doing some calculations based. So basically, if I do down, we're just looking which is the next item, and we select it. But I think I don't want to waste time into going that logic. But this is the whole logic basically here. We're just changing with +1 or -1, the selected item, the index. Right, so this is actually where things are already, the command is already doing what it's supposed to do, the popover is already doing what it's supposed to do, but in our case we want to actually to update some hidden input which is holding the value of the assignee user, so we can update it on the form. And here we have, this is already a custom component, this is not a headless component. So what we want is to make this distinction, because we have generic components, and at some point we need some very specific app logic, and in our case we're just creating another controller. We call it assignee, and what it's doing is that it's having a select, and basically this select is going to receive some event, it's going to extract the value from this event, and it's gonna update some HTML. Let me show it actually. So here now, if I do, so now, as you can see, we are changing the content on the trigger itself. This is basically what this is doing, and we're gonna see how this works. So in our command controller, we replace the handling for selecting item, but by stopping this alert, and we are just dispatching select event, and we are adding context, which is this detail, and we are passing the value, this is the user ID in this case, of what was selected. And just here, the more interesting part is actually here, is that we assign our new custom controller assignee, and here we do some more events. So here we say, okay, on the command select event, I want to execute assignee select function that's going to receive the event and do eventually with this. In our case, we're receiving the user ID, so we can do some logic there. And another thing that we are doing here, which is again custom, is that on the command select, we're closing the popover. So before that, it was not, nothing was hindering that. And in here, we're just adding some targets. So this is the hidden field that the assignee component is supposed to update. This is another target, which is just basically here this part, so it knows how to update this thingy. Let me just see if I missed something. Yeah, so here we're just we actually have working thingy. We're updating the hidden input value here, and we're also changing the visual representation. So this point should be working. So maybe if I assign Gennady, and if I update the form, we see that Gennady is, or maybe we just unassign it, and we have no assignee. This is actually kind of working already. It's working well. I mean, it's coupled with forms in Rails, and it's kind of functioning. And the only thing that's left is actually to do some polishing. Here we actually do something. I'm not sure if it's that interesting, but basically, here we're adding this checkbox. So because we have a focused state for the items, which is the state where you hover them or you just use the arrow keys, but we need another state for the currently selected value, and this is basically this checkbox. And it's nothing interesting. Here we just expose one more value in the signy controller. So selected is something very specific. The commands itself cannot be selected, like they're selected like once and they're just dispatching some events, but the signy controller is the one that actually keeps track of what's the current value and things like that. And here we're just again setting some data set attributes in this time select on the specific item, and based on this data attribute we do this SVG icon that we either show it or we hide it if it's not selected. So if I do now, we'll see that when I select someone, the state of this icon is changing. And another thing that we forgot to do is, like here at the moment, if we type something that doesn't match, it's just like that. On some websites it actually works like that, but we can do a little bit better. So we can add some empty message, and for example we can do something like we can type and we can display something more meaningful here, or maybe even some links with actions like creating a user or whatever. And in order to achieve that, we just have again one more group, one more target in the command. It's called empty, and here we just on the filtering, at the end of the filtering, we just check if any items are matched or not, and if no items are matched, we just show this empty message target. And again, we don't know actually what's the content, so we can see that the user here just has to provide some diff with whatever content they want, and they can style it the way they want, and they only have to specify that this is the empty message, the empty target. Yeah, and this is actually the end of the demo. This is hopefully kind of functional component. Maybe actually I have one more thing. No, I don't have one. Okay, maybe it's lost somewhere. So I had one more change, which is actually resetting the state, because now if we type something and if we open it again, the state is kept, but you can do some handling. I forgot to include it in the presentation, that on close you can reset the state of the command, so next time you open it, it starts from the from the initial state, because I guess you don't want to keep the filter here. So yeah, I think that was a bit long, but so a couple of things. Basically, you don't want to build those things by yourself. So because it's not difficult, but we as developers, we don't want to spend a lot of time. So basically, me and Christo are planning to release some open source library with the most used patterns like models, tabs, combo box. I also forgot to show that we also have some theme switcher here. It's again a stimulus controller, which by the way is I think this is the whole controller, by the way. So it's not difficult to implement, and this is not refreshing the page, by the way. If you have, it's keeping the state. If you have scroll or whatever, the only thing that it's doing is it's changing a single class on the wherever this element is attached. Here we're using this element. The controller is attached in our case on the body or on the HTML tag, and it's setting a cookie. It's setting the cookie because we want to be able to keep. So if I refresh the page, we are preserving the it's JavaScript cookie, but in our case it's just a value with the current theme, so we don't care if someone wants to to set something custom there. So yeah, and I was gonna say that we're planning soon, maybe next year, to release open source library where we're gonna have some headless components like that, so you can easily add them to your. So this is gonna be the website. Yeah, we have to do a mailing list, I guess. So it's gonna be called. The name is Sans UI. The website is gonna be Get Sans Sans UI. Yeah, and yeah, hopefully that was not too boring. That's all I have.
Okay, I have questions for you, but I'm going to ask them during our lunch break.
Okay, how to stop the recording?